Welcome back to the King's Corner, the place for all things Bethesda. I am the King Fan Man. We continue our search for the scariest places in Fallout 76. This time we go to a place that everyone is going to go to in Fallout 76, Flatwoods, West Virginia. But you don't know the whole story of the Flatwoods Monster. Flatwoods is located in Braxton County, West Virginia, with a population of under 300 people. This quaint little Appalachian town looks to be a perfect, peaceful, and quiet, and especially safe place to live. But as we've learned in this series, looks can be certainly deceptive, and in the case of Flatwoods, that seems to be true. This small West Virginia community has been around since the early 1800s, although only becoming officially incorporated in 1902. There is documentation of a church being established in Flatwoods in 1830 by Pastor John Clark, so we know the community was already there and thriving by that time. By the late 1800s, the West Virginia and Pittsburgh Railroad extended a branch through Flatwoods. It was not until 1952, however, that this quaint little town would find its fame and also find its bizarre danger and identity. In fact, trying to find any history of this town, it really appears as though Flatwoods had no history before September the 12th, 1952. Now, we all know this can't be true, but yet, when you look up Flatwoods history, 1952 is the only thing recorded. Of course, it's not that Flatwoods has no history before this, but the fact is, the events that started in 1952 are so amazing, so unique, that they literally overshadow any other information from the past of this little town. Now, many outsiders laugh at the claims of Flatwoods folks, but already I'm wondering, would a town stake its whole identity, its whole history, on a fake claim? Or did something amazing really happen in Flatwoods, West Virginia? Now, you will have to decide, but let me give you a few facts to consider before we even begin. As I already stated, the town of Flatwoods has staked their whole history and identity on these events. Would they do that if they knew they were false? And number two, every eyewitness on the first encounter became very ill and were all diagnosed by a physician with severe medical issues that they didn't have before the encounter. And number three, unknown to many, Washington, D.C. became very involved with this case, the U.S. Army, and all the way to the White House. So without knowing any more information about this case than those three facts, those should make you stop and at least consider the case to be much more than just another false claim. So there is no doubt it was something, but the question still remains today: what is the Flatwoods Monster? It all started about 7:15 p.m. on September the 12th, 1952, when several youngsters were playing football on the school playground. This quiet little town of 277 people was about to be changed forever. But no one knew it. Everyone was just doing their normal routine. The children were playing, as they often did. This very small town, nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. Well, this evening was about to change that. As they were playing football, suddenly they saw a fiery red streak cross the sky and apparently land or fell on the hill nearby Bailey Fisher Farm. The boys quickly ran to the home of two of the boys, Eddie 13 and Freddie 14, the May house that was nearby, and they got their mother, Kathleen May, a local beautician. She grabbed a flashlight and accompanied the group. Out of the house they ran and toward the field. The rest of the group included Neil Newley, 14, Tommy Hire, 10, Ronnie Shaver, 10, and National Guardsman Gene Lemon, 17, along with his dog. Mrs. May later recounted that the boys said a meteor or a UFO had crashed down and they wanted to go see it, and she said, "You're not going alone," so she accompanied them. So as they quickly headed toward the area, they told her what they had seen. They said it was a red streak of light that flew across the sky that stopped for a moment in midair before touching down in the nearby field, Fisher's Farm. Of course, the most interesting part of this red light was the fact that it stopped in the air. A meteor couldn't stop in midair. In truth, that means it wasn't a plane crashing either. So what in the world was it? I'm sure the exact same thing was rushing through the mind of everyone in that group headed toward Fisher's farm. As they got closer, Gene's dog ran ahead of the group, barking and growling with each step. The group quickened their steps, with their minds now running wild with what might lay ahead. However, what was about to happen would cause them all to find true fear for the first time. Just as fast as Gene's dog ran toward the site of where the red light went down, he now came back toward the group, but this time, instead of barking and growling, the dog had his tail tucked between his legs and was whining and yelping as if in pain or beyond terrified. The group now were changed from a jog to a walk, and fear began to take over. They entered a thick fog bank, but it wasn't fog. It had a very pungent smell, almost like sulfur, with a metallic smell as well. Maybe it was smoke, one of the boys whispered. As they eased forward with only one flashlight for light, the smell intensified, making their eyes and nose burn. The group began to hear noises like the sound of someone moving up ahead, and then they heard the noise of sizzling. Miss May said it sounded like bacon frying in a pan. They all knew that they were getting close to something very strange. Off in the distance, one of the boys saw a large oval shape that was pulsating with red light, almost like it was on fire. But something else had gotten everyone else's attention at that very moment. Off just to the left of the group were two red lights that looked almost like animals' eyes caught in the light. But these two red lights were lit not by the flashlight nor any other light. They were self-illuminated, and the group stood frozen as if they had walked right up within a few feet of these lights without noticing them. And now they were all caught in their gaze. Finally, fear subsided just enough that Miss May raised the flashlight to shine up at the two red lights to see what was causing the light. But nothing in their lives could have prepared them for what they were about to see. Mrs. May said less than a car length away from them stood, about 10 feet tall, a humanoid being hovering about 2 foot above the ground with two red eyes and a large, as they described, upside-down heart or an ace of spades on its head, which most of the group believed was a hood or a helmet of some kind. The body was tube-shaped, dark green or black, with the bottom being shaped like the folds of a skirt. It had small either arms or antennas, and after the flashlight hit this being, it gave off an eerie hiss and began to glide toward the group. Miss May was at the front of the group, and it squirted some oily substance all over Miss May. And screams could be heard echoing all through the valley as the group began to run. Miss May dropped the flashlight, and they all ran down the hill back through the smoke or fog that seemed to be thicker now as they all began to cough heavily as they tried to run through it toward the house. As soon as they got back to the house, Miss May frantically called the police, and shortly after, the local paper also was notified as well. Now, it is argued today how well the police searched the area, because after they came and supposedly searched, they said they found nothing in the area. Maybe they thought the story sounded too wild to be true and simply gave the area a quick drive-by. Now, I'm not accusing the officers of anything. The only reason I say this is because the very next person to go, an investigative reporter that worked for the state police that night, went to the area and found the same smell, the same fog, and another reporter came the next morning early in the daylight finding skid marks and a black oily substance, the same that was on Mrs. May's outfit. Also, after being questioned, the eyewitnesses were asked to draw the creature, and they all did separately, and each picture was almost identical. Also, each of the witnesses started showing signs of sickness. It started with intense nausea, eyes being bad red and watering. All that night into the next days, the witnesses suffered terrible nausea, throat swelling, and severe sinus problems. Also, sadly, Gene Lemon's dog, who had accompanied the group, died after suffering from extreme sickness that night. Even the reporters that went to the scene had some of the same symptoms. The doctor that examined the Mays said that they exhibited almost the same effects of people exposed to mustard gas. With all the mounting evidence, newspapers, TV, radio, all of them began to broadcast this story not only locally, but even nationally. In fact, the Flatwoods Monster, as it came to be known, became the number 11 national story of the year in 1952. It also was called the Braxton County Monster and the Green Monster, as the city of Flatwoods has on their sign today. Now, most people end the story of the Flatwoods Monster right here. But when they do, they really miss one of the biggest points in this story. Because just hours after the initial reports, the West Virginia National Guard showed up on the scene, led by World War II veteran Colonel Dale Levitt, under orders from Washington, D.C. In fact, Washington, D.C. ordered 180 troops to be sent to Braxton County, West Virginia. Now, what would cause our president to order 180 troops to this small little town? Just this story told by a few boys playing football? Well, of course not. There has to be more behind this order than that. And there was much more. Just a little bit of digging into this story, you find a lot of evidence. As those days unfolded, the military secured the area, not letting anyone else even come close to that field and the scene of the supposed crash. Now, the official story from the United States government after it's all over was that the red streak that the boys saw was a meteor and that the Flatwoods Monster was an owl. Well, we know by looking at documentation that that is not true. In fact, documentation tells us that Colonel Levitt was actually under orders from Washington, D.C., and directly the United States Air Force to, number one, check the area for the crashed craft. Number two, to get samples from the ground, from the leaves, and any residue of the area. And number three, to retrieve any materials from the area. And we also have to ask a question. Why did they need 180 troops to secure the area? That seems kind of excessive for Braxton County, West Virginia, doesn't it? Were they afraid of what they were going to come in contact with out there in Flatwoods? You will have to answer that question. Well, we do have a little bit more information from Colonel Levitt. In fact, in 1990, he gave one interview, and he actually admitted that he was in Flatwoods investigating a crash of a ship that was not a United States ship, and it was a ship that could do amazing things that no ship in the 1950s from America, from Russia, or from anywhere could do. It could fly frontwards, it could fly backwards. Listen to his very words.
Phone and asked me to get them what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'll send it back to you. I did. Came up here and got it.
What kind of samples did you get?
Pulled up dug some dirt and all that sort of thing, and we laid leaves off the trees and sent them in. That's all I did.
And this is the tree here.
That's the tree.
Where did you have to send all of this? You sent this to Washington? All of these samples?
The Air Force. That's what they wanted me to do.
And they never told you any of the results?
No results, never. They never do. Well, it landed gently and undoubtedly, because it didn't go down in the dirt or anything like that.
So it was a soft landing?
Really, I don't know what they had underneath that place where they landed.
Now, where was the area where this craft flew in? Was it from this direction here?
No, it came this way.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think happened here?
Well, there was something here that could fly backwards or wherever they wanted to go. Just anywhere, I think, as long as they don't tear up their equipment. It was right here.
Did the people seem...
Somebody will laugh at you, but it's a fact.
Now that may seem like some huge information, and it is, but believe it or not, it gets even bigger. The story gets even stranger when you look at the news on the same night, September the 12th, 1952, in Washington, D.C. On that same night, Washington, D.C. had 3 large crafts come straight over the Capitol and the White House, and the Air Force was ordered to intercept and shoot down those crafts. In fact, they had been under a shoot down and intercept order for some time. On the night of September 12, 1952, 3 meteor-sized crafts passed over Washington, D.C. about 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The first one went south toward Tennessee, flying over the Oak Ridge National Laboratory no-fly zone. The second object crossed over Washington and headed toward Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and was either shot down or turned just before reaching the airbase. The third object passed over Washington and was apparently either shot down or damaged in some way and crashed in Flatwoods, West Virginia around 7:15 p.m. Believe it or not, this was the second round of reported low-flying, meteor-sized crafts sighted in the eastern United States. So now we can see why the government was so interested in Flatwoods and the story those boys playing football had to tell. In fact, they have been questioned over and over about the Flatwoods Monster that they saw that night. In later interviews, those eyewitnesses have said without wavering that that creature they saw was very real. When asked to describe it with more detail, they all gave almost the exact same details. It is a humanoid, but it appears more of a machine than a monster. It is metal, greenish-black exterior, but it may be a metal suit of armor. The hood coming up to a point with a circle in the middle sunk in with 2 portholes looking for eyes, hovering about 2 foot over the ground, with reddish-blue lights as eyes that shine. It's a night that haunts the witnesses. But the knowledge that many, many more of these monsters may be out there is truly a terrifying thought. So it is as I said in the beginning. There is no doubt that something truly did happen on September the 12th, 1952. I'm not saying you have to believe in UFOs or you have to believe in monsters. But yes, the Flatwoods Monster does really exist. But the question still remains, what is it? Maybe more importantly, is it ever coming back? Have you ever looked at a subject and thought there was nothing there, and then you look a little bit deeper and you go, Wow. Well, that's what I did with Flatwoods. I've always kind of looked at it and thought, yeah, I might do a scary thing, but I've seen other people do it, and I thought, that story's been told over and over and over, but, you know, if I can't bring anything new to it, I don't want to do it. And then I started researching. It was like, wow, I can't believe the National Guard, the Air Force, Washington, D.C., and the guys, there's more to that story. It's just amazing. I can't bring it all in 15 minutes. And then we all get to go there in almost the first quest. It's like, I loved it. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, I love bringing these to you. As always, thank you for getting your Bethesda fix right here in the King's Corner. Please check my links down below. And as always, if you can and if you're able, please think about becoming a supporter of the King Fan Man channel. Listen, guys, that's how this content's going to stay on YouTube. If you like my content at all, think about it. Just a couple of dollars a month. That's it. It's like buying a soda pop, you know, a couple of days. That's it. All you got to do. So if you like my content, think about becoming a Patreon, or if you want to give a one-time gift, that is coffee. That link is down below as well. But I do appreciate all that you do. Just liking, commenting, sharing my videos. That does amazing things for me as well. Thank you for all you do. If you're not a subscriber, hit that button. Please do that as well. I am the King Fan Man. I'll see you out there in all those scary places. Bye, guys.